John Crush. Coolest wrestler name ever.
It might be real, but probably not.
No. Mike Zone. John Kozik. Am I saying that right? Kozik. All right. Andrew Vespia. And Janet Romano. Rounding out our team of professionals, Gene Orlando. So to begin this panel, I think the first and most important question is, what did your families do to fuck you up so much to want to collect Ouija boards? No, seriously, what, out of all the things in the world to be inspired to collect, just kind of a quick little recollection down across the row here. We'll start in the middle and move our way out on each side. But why the Ouija board? Why is it important to you?
From a very, very early age, I remember just hearing like all these scary stories that happened in my family. There was one where an uncle was out of town, and my mom and one of her siblings was playing with the Ouija board, and they asked when the brother who was out of town was going to call, and the board spelled out soon, very soon. 2 seconds later, the phone rang, and they answered it, and there he was. So, I mean, you're a kid, you hear this story growing up, you're fascinated. They had another incident where they were playing with it in the basement, and they asked if anybody was there, and a gigantic sledgehammer fell off the wall. And this was at my grandparents' house, and a lot of old houses have those underneath, like little crawl spaces and stuff where John Wayne Gacy tucks bodies. But they believed they had an entity called Greeny Eyes. So, like I said, I just grew up with the occult. I always had known about Ouija boards. I always wanted one myself. In my lecture earlier, I said in 5th grade, I wrote a story about teenagers using a Ouija board to contact a dead kid. I remember the first time I saw an old wooden one. It was at a mom's boyfriend's house, and I remember holding it. I was just like, yo, I hope this guy gives this to me one day. It was just the coolest thing. So when you become an adult, I think to be a happy adult, you just do what you want to do as a kid, and you know, you never really grow up and you stay happy. So I surround myself with things I like.
How many Ouija boards do you currently own?
I think I'm right about 75 or so.
75.
I set a limit for myself, though. I only get boards that were made before I was born. But if I collected modern ones, it would be, you know, astronomical at this point.
All right, let's move our way down.
Pretty much I grew up having a Ouija board in the house. It's pretty much a 1970s Parker Brothers version. And, you know, I always wondered about it. I'm pretty much along with him being a skeptic in that way, so like they never really bothered me. I just thought they were neat. And, you know, and it didn't happen too much later on. I was in the Army after I got out. I went back to Jersey to visit family. Went to a flea market with a friend. We were walking along, and there was leaning up against the table. It was an old wooden one, and that's the first time I ever seen an old wooden one. And it just struck me, and I kept walking by. And I said, you know what, I have to have it. The sales guy didn't know anything about it back then. It was hard to find any information about these things. But you know, I remember going up with one. I had to have it, and I had it. And then until later on, you know, pulled it out of the closet, just wanted to find more about it, and that's the internet was taking off and everything, and that's when I met Gene and Bob and learned a whole world of this that started where I'm at today. And yeah, my family still looks at me like I'm nuts. No, that's what it is, but I really enjoy it, and you know, finding out more about it.
So a dark childhood and misspent youth put me over to the dark side.
Finally, honesty.
Of course, I had to be interested in all things paranormal and occult, which I am for the majority of my life. As the oldest member of this panel, I can tell you that's been very well.
So I grew up as an Orthodox Jew, which I clearly don't look like now, right? But anyone who grows up Orthodox, you have that spiritualism. It's just kind of embedded, so it's not scary. It's just part of life. And I also grew up with a Jewish grandmother who thought that I should do everything my mother said I should. So my mother would leave the house. She would say, no creature double feature. The minute my mother left, she was like, come on, creature double features on. And actually in 1986, she took me to a movie called Witchboard. I wasn't supposed to see it. I was 13 years old. And I was just fascinated by this. I thought this was so cool. And then I went to UNH, University of New Hampshire, and I had 3 roommates who, they decided to rush for fraternity. And I knew that if I did that, I was likely not to graduate. So I let them go, and I figured I could enjoy their parties and do stuff, but then I could also, still study. And when they were rushing, one of the things was a treasure hunt. And that was just on the list, an Ouija board. And I had spent every weekend flea marketing, antiquing, yard sailing with my dad. So I went home, picked up a bunch, and when I was done and that was all over with, I realized I had 10 different boards. And I thought, there was only one Ouija board, right? Like there's just one, but I had 10 different ones. And that led me to start researching and of course, find Gene Orlando's Museum of Talking Boards online, and that, the sickness was born. And, there's a rule in our house now. Yeah, exactly. I'm the progeny. And it's really cool. So a lot of people think Ouija boards are bad and horrible, and to me they've made some of the best friends I've ever had. And it's wonderful, and kind of brought to you all of what you've had this weekend. So, I don't think they're bad or evil, but, they are fun to scare people with, right? If you, are sick, like all of us. So when you have a maybe Jehovah's Witness or Mormon come to your door, trying to convert you, you invite them in to a place or room that you have them from floor to ceiling, all 4 walls. Very quickly, they never knock on your door again. I've done it many times. It works really well. But yeah, in my house now, we have a rule. My husband said that I'm not allowed to put any boards out all over the walls anymore. It has to be framed. It was a mistake, right? Because we know you can frame anything. So now he has to pay for the stuff to be framed that he doesn't want to go on the walls. And so it just happens, but that's it pretty much.
Some of the earliest memories I have of my grandmother were using a Ouija board. And so when she passed away, I inherited it from her. And once I got it, I didn't know much about it, so I looked up online. And much like Merch, I was able to find more about it through Gene's site and realized that there were a lot more out there that I was drawn to as well. So just started looking them up, and I thought that one was lonely, needed another one, and before I know it, I needed another one, and it was just an addiction born from that. I mean, I always loved Halloween and anything creepy or spooky, and I already had monster toys and things like that, and the Ouija board fit right in with it. So from there, it just kept going, snowball.
Hi everyone. So my story is kind of cute. I guess when I was little, I always had a fascination against Ouija boards and fortune telling items and stuff like that, and always wanted to get my palm read down to the shore. So my parents would never let me have a Ouija board. And so I guess, I've always wanted one, really old one. And it just one day I said to my husband, I said, I'd love to get a Ouija board. And it's like, well, just go and get one. So I did. And one became two became a couple hundred. And
Wait, what? How many do you own?
Probably over, I'd say probably somewhere between 300 and 400.
How many are duplicates?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot.
Very cool. So that just kind of bred it, and you just started collecting, and then you had to go out and just make sure that you could make sure they didn't get any on eBay. Is that pretty much how I understood this? You were the hawk. You were the one that would come in and swoop in Bob's last 8 seconds and take away the boards. Is that correct?
Well, not 8 seconds, last 3 seconds.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I forgot.
I know the deal.
Very cool. And Mike, let me ask you this. Now, owning a store where it's filled with all kinds of oddities, see how I work that in? And you've got all of these great pieces. Have you seen a rise in collecting of things like Ouija boards, spirit boards, all of these paranormal divination tools now?
Well, just the odd and unusual is very popular now. Knock on wood. It's the kind of thing where I've been in this business, in the antique business, good 20 plus years. I've been collecting about 30 years, and years ago, no one really cared about this stuff. I mean, there were people who liked it, but the medical, the strange, the occult, the esoteric, the spooky, the creepy stuff. And now it's actually quite popular. And I do find more and more people are coming in looking for them. And the fact that there's so much information now due to a lot of these guys and on the internet that people now can find it out. Before they just, like Bob said, this one Ouija board never had Parker Brothers. And pretty soon people are like, oh, now you can get the old ones. And shops like mine, I've been looking at this stuff for years and selling, and buying, selling, and collecting boards. Now it's a lot more accessible, and it seems the interest is definitely climbing in this stuff.
Well, as we kind of bounce around on this list, let me ask you this, and is there ever any of the boards, when people bring them in, do they all bring them in to sell them to you or trade? Do they all have a creepy story attached to them or a weird connection?
A lot of people I buy from are freaked out by them. I've been to so many antique shows where they'll have boards, and I remember this one in upstate New York. She had like 3 or 4 early boards, nice old wooden ones, and I asked, and the dealer said, well, she told me that they were very, very inexpensive, but she said, I can't touch them, but she can't touch them. She's like, I'll sell them to you, but you have to touch them, I'll give you the bag, I'm not handling them. She used gloves and a bag to touch them. She was freaked out by them. And I find there's a lot of people like that as well. People come into the store, half of them are like, oh my God, Ouija boards, look. And the other half are like, oh, you get away from me. Don't look at it. People still get quite freaked out by it. Even when I posted on my Facebook about Ouijacon, people like, have a great time, but be really careful. It's not just a game. I got a couple of those messages.
Has there ever been, in your accumulating of the boards, has there ever been one that you refused because of the story that came along with it? Or how it was made? No? Well, thank you very much.
Oh,
Was that a good thing?
I actually have one.
All right, good.
I found a really crazy person. I think they had a Craigslist ad. And the woman said that the board was made with human remains. And she didn't have any paperwork to verify it, but the more I got into the story, she told me that the remains were those of her father that she got back from a state prison. And he was some kind of pedophile and stuff like that. He led like a small cult and had enslaved her and her brother. And the only reason why I didn't really buy it is because I knew that they would have my address and PayPal information if I ever went through it. And that was a good one.
So you sent them to merch?
No, I stayed far away from that one. And again, it's Craigslist, so who knows if they're completely making the story up or if they just, they thought they had someone on the line and they could reel them in.
We'll buzz back down the line. Is there one favorite that you were able to get at some point that just really stands out for you, and what's the story behind it?
No haunted stories about it. Although people ask me all the time for haunted items, I can't prove anything's haunted. Just really good scores. I mean, you find things like this woman who would only touch the Ouijas with plastic bags on her hands and made me touch it. She's like, I think it's homemade, but it was actually a really early kid art, and it was like $25. Like good stories like that. But
Merch down that
I know. I believe you got a shot. She's like, I think it's homemade. I'm like, perfect. I would have taken a homemade board as well. But
Mike always gets those stories. Like every time I see him, he's got a new, hey, guess what I got story.
I go a lot of places.
And sometimes it's literally 15 minutes before you got there. I'm like, oh, thanks, man.
That's a lot.
Janet, how about you? Do you have one board that really is your favorite above all?
I would say yes. It came from a private collector.
Can you tell us anything about it?
It's the Nirvana board, and it's pretty rare, and it's literally my favorite.
What about that board specifically? Is it just because of the rarity of it, the way you got it?
I think it's there's a lot behind it. It's about I don't know. I like the way it looks. I like everything about it. It's probably because it's super rare. The swastikas, symbol, everything.
All right, very good. Keep moving down the line. Favorite board and why?
Today, it's going to be the Electric Mystifying Oracle. Tomorrow will be something else. But there's a sample of it in the museum out back. It's a metal board that was made in the 30s, and when you used a planchette with it, it actually had sparks come out of it. I have just the board itself, but because it's different, it's a larger board, made metal, and it's pretty rare. That would be my favorite one today.
I think my favorite for the past couple of years has been the wireless rider. We actually have an example in there. The wireless rider was the only board so far. Oh no, because we had the Magic board that was made in Connecticut, but not a true Ouija board. It's the only true Ouija board that was ever made in Connecticut. It was made in my hometown, and I grew up there, never even knew about it until a couple of them showed up on eBay. I won one, and Janet won one, and I actually went to the guy's house to pick it up. I told him I didn't want it to get damaged in transit. I only live 2 towns over, let me go get it up. So I go, hey, if I'm gonna be there, do you have any others? He goes, well, yeah, I think we got a couple. He had sets. His uncle had cleaned out the factory where they were made, and we do believe that maybe Fold sent a letter of cease and desist, so they had all this new stock, and they never could sell it. So when he cleaned out the factory, his uncle literally took them and threw them in the garage and let them rot. Some of them were in complete disarray. Some of them looked like they'd been sitting in a puddle of oil. But I walked out with about 12 sets for dirt cheap, traded with other collectors, sold them to some friends and stuff like that. But very, very memorable story. I'm very happy to have been a part of it.
My favorite boards in the collections are the stencil boards. Now, there's one in particular that I really like, and there's some boards in our collections and stuff that we call mystery boards. We're not sure of them yet. We don't know where they're made or whatever. But there's a particular board that Bob won a long time ago, and we call it the floor board. It has a wonderful floral pattern on it, and it pretty much looks like a Kenner board. It has the slats on the back and everything, but that's all we know about it. But I think it has something more to do with what was going on at that time when the board was coming out. I think it might be prototype or whatever. But 2 more of those actually popped up, which Brandon out there and Janet happens on. So that's going to be my favorite. And I think my favorite boards in the collection also are the ones that still have a mystery to it that we haven't unfolded yet. Because that's what keeps us going. So that'll be the floral board. And sorry to say we don't have one here, but I think we could find some pictures.
Well, my favorite board is the Electric Mystifying Oracle with the metal plancha, and it's a Depression era beauty, Art Deco, and there's one that you was talking about before that's in there. But I would say probably my most favorite boards are the handcrafted boards that you see alongside that wall, because they represent the interest that people had when they came to my website and they looked at the boards and they were inspired and they put their heartfelt artwork into those boards and their psychology, what moved them. All that is in each one of those boards and reflected there. So I'm very thankful to them and appreciative, and they have to be my favorite because they're like my children.
I think my favorite board is usually, and up till last year, is always like the next one I get. So I'm always in love with the next one. And I always say, oh, they're like my children, I love them all, so I turned 42 years ago, and for my 40th birthday, all of these guys and a few other collectors who aren't here chipped in to buy me a board that Gene's had, the only one that we know, and it says goodnight at the bottom. But it most closely resembles the Bond pattern, or the beginning, the first boards. So we're not sure if it's made by them, but it looks an awful lot like this was the board they were making before Ouija was named. And so when I look at that board, I see all of these guys. And what's unique about our collectors group that's different than other collectors, and probably Mike Zone can talk about that, is we've created over the years, and it hasn't been easy because we're still collectors, so we're very competitive, and until someone wins. And then when someone wins, it's like, okay, cool, you won, congratulations. Now send me pictures. I want to see it, I want to feel it, I want to touch it. As long as you share it, it's okay. It's not still great because I didn't get it, but but that's different and unique. And so, the Museum of Talking Boards started all of these other collectors kind of coming out of the closet. Oh, I collect them too. And then, eventually we were all emailing separately, and then we were able to make a Facebook group. And that made it so that other people could join, and then they would talk, and all of this history is basically put together with collaboration. And a lot of collectors, things are private, right? Like, they don't want to share, it's mine, this is my thing, it's very special to me, and you're not going to see it, touch it, and a lot of collectors feel important because they have something rare, as opposed to maybe the importance of the object, which you wouldn't know if you didn't share and talk. And so unique to us, this Talking Board Historical Society is basically that. It's a bunch of collectors who love the Ouija board so much that they're willing to squash as much as they can this competitiveness that keeps them from sharing. So that board was pitched in from 17 other collectors, and it was just a real tribute, I think, to our community, that people were willing to pitch in and buy a board that every single one of them wanted, but was willing to buy for another collector. It just says a lot. So my favorite boards are all the boards that I've traded and have been in someone else's collection, because though I look at each one and see the history, they're all memories to me. I mean, honestly, it's all just stuff, right? But all of those boards to me, and I have an awful lot, but I know where every single one comes from, and they're all part of the journey. They're all part of, my story, or where I came from, or where I was at that time, or who I was friends with, or where I went. And so to me, it's personal, but in a fun way.
How many boards do you own total, Bob?
I have over 500 different boards, but then there's variations of those, which I don't count as different. They're just as they progress. And then there's a few doubles and triplicates of some rare ones, but I tend not to keep them anymore. One, because I don't have any room, and two, because I have an awful lot of friends who want them. So I just trade them off. And I was lucky to have been doing this back when you could buy a Kenner board for $10, $15. That was unheard of. I mean, Gene remembers when spending $25 online for a board was ridiculous. Like, what are you thinking? Now those $25 boards are going for $4,000 to $6,000, and that's all our fault, right? It's all because we know, we know. So we really screwed ourselves.
And by our fault, you mean Janet's?
Yes, exactly. It's not Janet's fault.
I keep looking at you, Jen.
Yeah, like, wait a minute.
Gene, as the elder statesman with this, I'm just curious, and I'll bounce through a couple of you on this question, but this seems like an interesting item to be at toy stores. And when you look, just since the 70s, 80s, 90s, every 10 years or so I hear some big hubbub of people trying to get petitions to take it out, how dangerous it is. Look, they release a Barbie doll that speaks, and she comes out and she says, gee, math is hard. It's off the shelves in a week, right? They come out with the Dick Tracy doll, and one is a dirty hobo, and it says, a stinky, rotten homeless person. They pull it in 2 weeks. The Ouija board has taken a lot of bad flack over the years. How do you think it keeps dodging the bullets of the politically correct that remains in the store?
Well, we think that's wonderful. The Ouija has a reputation, and we try to maintain that. We present both views, spiritual and ideomotor response. But we also think that the Ouija is just an absolutely wonderful occult device, and it's the one thing it's the one game really that has attitude. And otherwise, it would be just like Monopoly or anything else. So as much hard press as it takes, it's always going to be popular. We haven't really seen a big difference from the first time it came into existence to now. There have always been haters, always been people that like it.
Right, and again, I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on it. When the public speaks, toy stores and toy companies pull the toys quickly. And like I said, with the Barbie doll they pulled, with the Dick Tracy doll they pulled, with the talking Elmo that sounded like he said, I want to kill you, right? They pull these toys immediately. The Ouija board has been on the forefront. How do you think it keeps dodging the bullet of just not being pulled out of stores?
Well, ultimately, it's a board. There's nothing going on. If someone said, this Ouija said kill whatever, you could, it was that person. It wasn't like Parker Brothers or Hasbro put on the board, on the box, kill whoever. It's ultimately what people get out of it. And I think and some people look at them and said, well, it could be a checkers board. It's a plank of wood. Whereas the dolls you mentioned were specifically saying things over and over again. The Ouija, it's up to you what you get out of it. And some people get a lot out of it, and some people get a little out of it. And, someone can't claim that the Ouija made them, although I think that has happened actually. Right. But I'm
just confused because one of the most powerful voices in America and in the world has always been the religious sect and Christianity. And you're not supposed to commune with the dead. You're not supposed to talk with the dead. So even though it is a board, and they play up the whole spooky angle. It's always baffled me that they were, somehow the Ouija board just seems to be like the Bill Clinton of the toy industry.
It's
no matter what kind of sticky story hits it, it just slides right on through.
I think the Ouija board is going to be a really good social barometer. If you ever notice that they do make a law where you can't sell them anymore, or you can't carry them in a store, that's when we're going to start burning books, man, and things are going to get really scary. Ultimately, it's a toy. I can understand, Elmo or something like that, telling kids to do something horrible. This is a game powered by your imagination. If they are so scared of what an individual's mind can come up with that they're going to take that game out and they're going to prevent us from exercising our free rights, that's when we're all screwed as a country.
Show of hands, all of you on the board. How many of you believe that there is a spiritual element, that there is possibly ghosts involved in the communication through the board? 2 of you. Isn't that intriguing? For this board being marketed the way it has been for so long, that out of this panel, only 2 people really believe any kind of connection to the spiritual side of that. That to me is just kind of a fascinating angle as well.
Well, I raised my hand, and so I'm sure everyone here was looking like, really, he believes in ghosts. Well, I think when you die, all that's left of you is your memory, like the memories you've left with other people. And so what you're talking to, I believe, is what you have left of them in your head. And that's what, to me, a ghost or a spirit is. What haunts you is what's inside your head and what's been left with you, the things that you've done. But I just want to go back to your other question where you said, why isn't it pulled? And I think because the numbers talk, right? It's a moneymaker, and it's something that expresses and allows people to explore something that happens to everyone. We're all going to die. The story is going to end the same for everybody. It's just whether it happens quicker or not. And
way to bring the party down.
But I mean, it's something we're afraid of.
Hasbro's in league with Satan.
Obviously.
How's that? You like that?
Mr. Potato Head is obvious of that.
But I think the numbers talk. So, as Gene and I often talk about, we're always trying to get hard data, hard facts. Let's really look at what we're talking about. Just not what the feeling is, not what people are saying, but numbers. And the only numbers that have ever really been released from Hasbro are from 1967 to 2004. 13 million Ouija boards were made. That's just from Hasbro. So think now, 1890 to 2015. Now, how many bad stories have you really heard? So the truth is that we do hear them, and they do. I know, yeah, Gene's going to count them up. And so if we look at that, people can say they're horrible. And my best friend's cousin's next door neighbor's aunt played the Ouija board and became possessed. Well, I mean, you're not going to remove it for something that just doesn't add up. And again, if you bring it back towards what the Ouija board really is, and I love what Gene says about the Ouija board being a reflection. It's basically a mirror of the user. And so the reason it's never going to go away is because the people who played it, the people who actually experimented with it, are getting a glimpse of what's inside of them, or what they believe to be on the other side. And when you pick up a Ouija board and you play, you're admitting to yourself a little bit that there's someday you're going to be on the other side of that board. And so you're really exploring this mortality. What happens afterwards? What's going to happen when I'm gone? Is there anything more than this life that's out there? I mean, what other game that's sold actually makes you think about what happens after this? What does my life amount to? What happens if I didn't get to say goodbye to someone? They died and the last thing I said to them was screw you. And I didn't really mean that. And so, I think the Ouija board reflects kind of our deepest fears and our greatest hopes. And so when some people have horrible, awful, evil experiences, this is what they're afraid of. That's ultimately, to me, when I look at, that's what they're scared of. And when they have a great experience, like I got to talk to my grandmother that I never got to say goodbye to, and I told her the things and she talked to me, they walk away crying thinking this is amazing, because that's what they needed. So people get out of the board, I think, what they want.
Jen, are you the one that said that you believe that there's spirituality attached to it, that there's ghosts? Do you have a story or reason why you believe that that's the case?
I've actually contacted a couple spirits myself. I believe that not every time do you play, and not every time, depending on who you're with, I really, truly, honestly feel that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I mean, I've witnessed it. I've been there. And so I think it's just the place, the setting, just everything